Living with loss. Loss can be one of the most difficult experiences to have to live with day by day. And yet, there are many things we can do to learn from this, to grow during this period, and to honor the one who is no longer with us anymore. Sometimes the loss is the loss of a relationship. The person is still alive, but you may have divorced or just may have parted after a certain number of years, or even after being with a person a short time. Still, loss can be very difficult. Sometimes the loss is the loss of due to the person passing away. And we have a sense that, oh my goodness, I'll never ever see this person again. It seems so final and irreparable. So that's slightly different experiences. However, what I'm going to deal with in this book today is living with loss that seems that you will not see the person again. And you have to somehow come to terms, somehow absorb, somehow integrate all that has gone on. There's a saying, what do we have that we can lose? It's an interesting saying, isn't it? What do we have that we can lose? We do have this sense as we go through life that things belong to us, people belong to us. There's an attachment and ownership that seems to take place. We feel, well, this person is mine and they will be with me forever, and that is the way it's supposed to be. You know, we come into life empty-handed, but then immediately we grab on and hold on to everything. Immediately we make some kind of claim for ownership. This is my mother. She cannot go away. So some enormous hunger seems to begin to develop. What exactly are we hungering for? We want to hold on. We want to receive. We want to have what we have forever. A little child grabs their toy or their blanket, and if anyone wants to take it away, they scream and yell and cry. So we do feel a sense that the people and the experiences around us belong to us, and nobody can take them away. So parting is a difficult experience, or letting go. It seems to be inbuilt in most of us, difficult to let go. This process of attachment is very, very strong. And when we have an experience of loss, in a sense, what we're really having is an experience of change, inevitable change. However, we experience it as loss. We don't realize, we don't absorb the fact in our life that everything changes, and it must change. It will change. That's the nature of life itself. It's the nature of love itself. It's the nature of the body itself. But when I say it's the nature of love itself, I'm not speaking about the kind of love that surpasses or that goes beyond change, because there is that love, of course, as well. But I'm talking really about attachment and the dependency and the connection that most of us feel. That changes in the ephemeral or in the phenomenal world. It changes. It needs to. And that's actually the way we grow. We grow because we change. It's an interesting paradox. If things didn't change, we would never grow. We would never grow. So change is inevitable, change is necessary, and yet our deep, deep attachment fights it, grieves terribly for it, and we feel somehow that we failed, or somehow that we can't go on. We're confused. We're disturbed. Maybe we may feel we've been rejected. All of these feelings come up when we have a strong feeling of loss. There's a beautiful Zen saying which says, when they come, we welcome. When they go, we do not pursue. This describes a wonderful, healing, healthy attitude toward the inevitable experiences of change that we all go through. To welcome whatever comes, and not to pursue when the time comes for the person or the experience to leave. We do not pursue, we do not cling on, we do not get attached. We allow the actual natural flow of life to flow as it will. It will, because it does have a mind of its own. And even though we may fight this loss or change, even though we do everything we can to prevent it, there is a time to come and there is a time to go. So this is about living with loss. How do we do that then? How do we actually go forward? How do we live after this loss has taken place in our life? How do we really, from the depths of our being, say goodbye? Now, there may often be a sense that the person is with you. It's not an ultimate goodbye. Many people experience this in very, very different ways. But there's also a need to experience a sense of completion, of letting go, of allowing the next step to take place. So in order to really live with loss or to live with parting, in order to really allow what's happened to happen and for us to go forward fully, or to really say goodbye, that's another way of putting it, what's very important is to feel complete with the person, with the situation, and with ourselves. To feel complete means we feel as if we have done, said, experienced all that there was to do between the two of us. That's not often the case. Sometimes it is, and that's very wonderful. But many times we are living with jagged edges. There's a lot that wasn't resolved. Maybe we don't even realize it. Often we don't even realize it until the person's gone. Oh my goodness, I wish I had said that. I wish I had given him or her this. I wish I had done that. Wish, wish, wish. And that causes a great deal of the pain that we experience in this process of loss. All that wasn't said or done or experienced together. You often hear people say, oh, I missed out. They were there, but they really weren't there. I missed out on so much with this person. And I'm so sad now. I'm so sad now. Now that sadness or that grief or that mourning is an inevitable and natural, healthy actually, part of this process of living with loss. And it's very important not to repress it, not to pretend it's not happening, not to run away from that feeling too fast. Because if we push it away and pretend it's not there, it will pop up sooner or later. Sometimes it causes illness in others. Sometimes it causes a person to make decisions that are really not in their best interest at all. That's why it's said after a very big loss in your life, don't make any major changes or decisions for a year. Now that's a long time, 1 year. But it's really pointing to the fact that we've had a little earthquake go on in our equilibrium and in our life. And we need that time and that patience to sort it out, to be with it, to allow the reality of that, the passing of that person, the change of their life, all that was complete, all that wasn't complete, to be resolved. Very important. It's a very important time, and it cannot be rushed, although certainly, we all want to rush right through it, and some people won't even go into that experience at all. They'll rush into a new relationship or rush into a new job or a new move away to get rid of all the memories. But actually, those memories are very precious. Even though they might be painful, they're very precious, and in this book, I'm going to show how to work with them in the most healing, uplifting, and healthy way. So many will say, well, how can I become complete with this relationship? Because the person's gone now. They're gone. It's over. How can I ever feel resolved or at ease or at peace now? Now, that's a very good question, and it's an important question, and it's a way that many, many feel. And I'm happy to tell you that you can. Whether the person is present physically in your life or not, you still can, on your own, work through what happened and what didn't happen with them. You can return to your memories of them, call them to you in your mind, and work a lot of it, probably all of it, through. You know, it's a very, very interesting point here, because sometimes, even if the person is present in our lives, we cannot work something through with them because they're just not available to do that. They're not on the same page. They can't really listen. They can't really hear, and they just don't want to discuss certain things or work with you on certain things. However, you have the ability to work it through within your own mind and your own heart on your own. Now, that's a very fascinating concept, but it's true. And that's what I'm going to offer to you here in this book now, the tools, the steps, and the way to come to peace with this on your own. And not only to come to peace, but to come to a sense of completion and even, hopefully, to a feeling of love, a feeling that it's all good, all is well. I'm at peace with this, I accept this, I've digested this experience thoroughly, and I am able to move on. Because living with loss is also really about moving on, being able to move on, not staying always, forever and ever, in a place of grief and mourning. You know, when we're right in the middle of grief and mourning, we actually feel that it's never going to end. Never. It feels deep. It feels vast. And sadly, for some, it doesn't end. They just feel that's the way to hold on to the person, by grieving for them. And if they forget them or if they let go of the grief, it's the same thing as letting go of the relationship, letting the person, as if the person never was, as if the relationship hadn't been. That's a mistake. It's a big mistake because, as you will see, the more you allow the grief to go, the more you allow the memories to be resolved and healed, the more alive you will feel, the more love you will feel, and wherever they are, that person will feel it as well. You know, I'm just saying this, there are many, many stories in the literature of people who have had dreams or have had encounters with those who even have passed. And they've received like a little message which has said, please don't keep grieving for me this way. It's disturbing me. It's keeping me from moving on. That's a very, very fascinating idea. Well, of course, I'm not setting this up as some kind of theology, something to believe or not believe, but certainly anything that keeps you from moving on can't be good for anyone around you. So again, we don't want to jump in and move along too quickly without really coming to terms, digesting our experience, and yet we also, on the other hand, don't want to stay stuck in a feeling of endless grief and pain. So living with loss is about both experiencing the sorrow and taking the next step as well. Very, very important to be able to do both. So, as I said, when we complete our relationship, what does that mean? It means we have to allow the other person to truly know us, and we have to truly know them as well. Then the relationship feels fulfilled. And then we've been the person we wanted to be in that relationship as well. Although we may miss the person then, we will not mourn that deeply. The person has become part of us now, and something vital has been integrated. Of course, at first it may seem too frightening or overwhelming to complete a relationship with someone who's gone. We just don't know where to begin. And as I said, we may feel a sense of futility that what difference does it make? They're already gone. But as I said, it's never too late to complete a relationship. At every moment, we still have the opportunity to be the person we always wanted to be. Your own act of truthfulness and awareness will release you from a sense of pain and futility. You'll feel different. You'll be able to think about this person, and the feeling of grief and loss will be very different. Of course, by the way, if the person is still alive, perhaps if they're ill, even if they're not ill, it's very, very good and very, very wise to do this process all through a relationship as well. What a wonderful way to have a relationship, for it to be fulfilled and complete day by day. That is amazing. Okay, let's see. Where do we begin now? Well, here's how we begin. To begin, if the person is here, and even if the person isn't here, you can call them to you in your mind, and it's almost as if they are here with you then, and simply tell them to begin what they have meant to you and what they have given you in your life. That's a beautiful thing to do. How often we just let the days go by and we don't take the time to stop and tell someone what they've meant to us. Say thank you, a deep thank you for what they've given you in your life. So if you're doing this process alone, if you are living with loss, take a moment now and write down. Make a list of all that person gave to you. Now, usually we're remembering and we're grieving for all that we did not receive. So now we're going to do the opposite. Make a list of all that they did give to you, and also make a list of all that you gave to them. That's going to be the next step. Because so many times we're in so much pain, we feel, oh, I didn't give them this, I wasn't good enough, I didn't meet their needs. That's usually not true. Sometimes it is, and if it is, we will deal with it soon. So, but to begin with, make a list of all they gave to you. And acknowledge it. Mention it to them, because, as I said, people aren't even aware of what they're giving to others or of what they're receiving. Mention it and say thank you. Thank you for each one. You know, the process of giving thanks and of acknowledging what you've received from one is a wonderful way to live with loss. It's the process of completion, of feeling good, of giving thanks. When you look at the list of all that person gave to you, take a moment and say, well, now what else do you want from them? That's an interesting question, because very often we have a sense, this isn't enough. You can't go. I want more. I want more. So take a look. What more do you want from them? What more did you need from them? Or did you just want them to keep giving you the same thing over and over and over? So anyway, take a look at that. What else did you want? Did you need from them? If the person is gone, pause and say Can you give it to yourself now? Can you give this to yourself now? Do they have to give you every single thing you need? Maybe somebody else now in this world can give you that, or maybe you can give it to yourself. Are there other ways to receive that? This is a very powerful and empowering question. It's stepping out of the role of victimhood and saying, wait a minute, I received a great deal, and what I did not receive from this person, I can still receive in my life. I'm not doomed never to perhaps have the love I wanted, or the understanding I wanted, or whatever it is. Very often we're not grieving for the person, we're grieving for what we did not receive or what we did not give. It's a very important and powerful point. We feel that emptiness. We feel that sorrow about it. So by becoming specific and clear, it's a way of lifting that and moving on. Now, again, it's a very good thing to make a list of what you gave them as well, because we often feel so inadequate. When somebody leaves, we really feel left alone, rejected, as if we've somehow failed. Loss can be experienced that way, and it often is. So in a case like this, make a list of what you gave them and thank yourself for that. Acknowledge yourself for that. Acknowledge yourself for the gifts you gave the other person. Even if they didn't appreciate it, by the way. Even if they weren't able to truly receive it, you can acknowledge yourself and thank yourself for having done that. Many of us just cannot acknowledge or receive the many gifts we receive from others. And that makes us feel as if we didn't give them anything at all, or as if it wasn't enough. There's always this feeling, I want more, it's not enough. And that feeling is projected back and forth very, very often in relationships. So in this case, you don't have to go along with that. You can stop and take a good look and say, wow, look at all I gave them, and thank yourself for that. So this is a very good one and a very important one. Now, the next very big point in completing a relationship is the need to be forgiven, or the need to forgive. We're not going to brush under the rug painful experiences that have gone on between you and that person. After they're gone, or particularly after they've died, we don't want to think about that again. We feel awful remembering that, but those memories are still there. It's never a good thing to brush that under the carpet or to brush any feeling away, because it will return sooner or later, and it will have its toll. However, when negative memories or experiences are calmly brought to the surface and shared and understood and forgiven, then we can be finished with them. And there is much more room within ourselves available for life, health, and love to emerge. As this happens, we see that this anger and disappointment are only another part of our life experience. They're inevitable. And what we really need to do is to learn what it actually means to face it and then to forgive. In other words, to apologize sometimes, to say, I am sorry. That's very, very healing. Now, the person may, as I said, be gone. We can still do this and be forgiven and forgive. Bring that person to your mind and first write down what it is you feel you maybe have done that you need to be forgiven for. Again, a lot of the loss and the pain is for the things that we want forgiveness for that we may not have yet received it. We may not even have faced how badly we feel about something that happened or about something that they did. So to begin, let's make a list of what we feel we need forgiveness for. Interestingly enough, that usually causes more pain. And you can say to the person in your mind, I am sorry, please forgive me. So now, of course, you're going to say, well, how can they forgive me? They're gone. That's true, they're gone. Sometimes when people do this exercise in their mind, they see the person forgiving them, but sometimes they don't, and it doesn't really matter. Just by virtue of you facing it, feeling it, and asking for forgiveness, a great weight will be lifted from your heart. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Mention each thing that you feel you want forgiveness for and ask for it. Forgiveness comes. Forgiveness comes when we ask for it, when we regret what we've done. We're all human. We all need forgiveness. We all need to face it. And then we also need to feel the wonderful feeling of allowing ourselves to be forgiven and letting it go. You know, when we don't, we keep punishing ourselves in many, many ways. And for some, after somebody leaves, there's a lot of illness that comes and a lot of self-punishment that goes on. That's guilt. And this self-punishment and guilt arises because we have not forgiven ourselves. We haven't asked for forgiveness. So when we don't, self-punishment and guilt comes. So now what we're doing is letting that go. Important, very, very important. It will be of no benefit to you or them or anyone to continue this self-punishment forever. It just doesn't do any good. Instead, by the way, if you feel you did something and you want to correct it, okay, you learned from it, you were sorry, you can correct it. You can give a gift of yourself to someone else. You can do something really constructive and positive. Okay, I did this, I'm sorry, I wish I had done that. Well, go do that with someone else. Help someone else in honor of your loved one. That's a constructive, wonderful way to deal with something you've done wrong. Stop and say, what did I learn from this, and how can I share that, the benefit of that, with someone else? That's so much more productive than guilt and self-punishment, which goes on and on and on. Now we want to go to the next step and write down what that person may need to be forgiven for. You may be grieving so much because of the pain of something that they did to you that was never maybe worked through, forgiven, discussed, or anything. Write it down. Be brave. Face it. Take a look at the whole situation and offer them forgiveness for that. You can say it to them in their mind, in your mind, because actually their mind, your mind, it is one mind. There is a part of us that are all connected forever. So you just say it. I forgive you. This is what happened, and I let it go. I forgive you. I'm willing to let this go. You know, when you're willing to let it go, that is giving such a gift to your own self. Because when you hold on to it, really, it's like a painful rock on your heart and in your life. You let it go because it's not a positive aspect of what's going on for you now. It happened. And again, you could see, what did you learn from that? Turn something that's so painful around into something positive. That's a great way to live with loss, and it's a wonderful way to let someone go. Turn it into a lesson. Turn it into a source of strength. And enter into forgiveness for both of you now. This is a very powerful and wonderful, wonderful, wonderful exercise. As you do this, the relationship will become more and more complete. And as it becomes more and more complete, you'll feel much less pain and much less of a sense of emptiness inside of you, because what you'll begin to feel is a sense of oneness and love. When we feel a sense of love or respect or self-worth, the horrible pain of emptiness, loss, and sorrow begins to go. Now, once you've let go of the hard times, think back over your time together. Just think back over all of it, because sometimes there's like a rock, a hard experience that clouds everything. It just clouds everything, and we can't remember all of it. So now look back over your whole experience together, and for a moment, think of what is the most beautiful thing you remember between you. Those moments of beauty are so healing and so life-giving. And you could tell the person. You could tell the person. And then you could also say to them how much that meant to you. Now, in this process of completion, you need to also take a moment and ask yourself, or some people ask the other person, what needs to happen between both of you in order for you to feel peaceful and complete? That's a wonderful question. What has to happen in order for you to be able to let them go? Let them go on their way without feeling ripped apart and devastated. What is it what do you need from them in order to feel strong and fulfilled? So take some time with that question. You can ask them, you can become quiet, and you can ask yourself, and give yourself time for the answer to bubble up. Sometimes the answer comes right away. Sometimes it takes a little while. Is there something you want the person to do or say to you in order for you to be able to let them go? If so, in your mind, you could ask the person to say it to you. It sounds silly, but it works for many, many people. And if you can't do that, say it to yourself. Give it to yourself. Or you'll know that this is something that's important to you in your life and you want it. And maybe you'll also be able to realize that there are a lot of other opportunities still available for you to receive that in your life as well. That's a very interesting idea, because many say, well, I refuse to go on. I refuse to get that from someone else. I only want it from that person. That's a demand that's not worthwhile. If that person can't give it to you, and if you can't give it to yourself, it's a big world we're living in. Focus on all they did give you and say thank you for that. Say thank you for that. We don't have to receive every single thing we need from one person or one relationship. And we don't have to give all we have to give just to one person or one relationship. Each relationship comes to bring out something different in us, to give us something different, to receive something different. And when the time comes, it's time to let it go. Now, when we speak about letting it go, this will help a great deal. This is a wonderful question. Now, how can you honor the relationship and the person? That helps a lot in living with loss and letting things move along. To honor that person, what can you dedicate to them? That's a wonderful, wonderful question, because you're taking them with you. You're taking all the beautiful gifts you receive from them in your heart, and you're moving into life, and you're honoring them by dedicating it to your life and to the next step for you. I remember when someone's father passed away and that person could not get over it. What they finally did was decided to dedicate the relationship to their going out and helping others deal with loss and grief. They began to work in hospice. They took all the difficulty they went through and they used it to become strong and to share whatever they learned with others, and they constantly dedicated that experience to their father. That was enormously healing for them. That was enormously helpful. And that allowed them to move forward, and not just to move forward, but to feel that that person, the essence of that person, and the essence of that relationship was still with them all the time and was living. That person was actually living. Their relationship was alive, because every time they helped someone else based upon what they learned from that relationship, what they gained from that relationship was alive right then and right now. So that's a very beautiful and powerful tool toward living with loss and moving on. You know, it takes a lot of courage to move on. It definitely does. It definitely does. Now, it takes a very, very, very strong sense of good timing. As I said, we don't want to rush into it. But we don't want to delay it endlessly as well. So I want to read a very, very beautiful quote about this. It's by Henry Miller, and he says, "The world is a womb, not a tomb. It's a place where everything is engendered and brought to life." So just as we must learn to part, we must also learn how to be born and to move on. We must learn how to open our hearts and to grow constantly. And when we can do that, that is ultimately the biggest way of honoring the relationship and the person that has gone. They're not, as I said, when we do that, they're not gone. They're with us constantly. So along with honoring your feelings while you are grieving a loss and living with loss, and respecting your feelings and allowing yourself to feel them, at the very same time, it's very interesting to take steps at the right time. You'll know the right time. Little steps at first, little new steps toward the wonderful, healing, life-giving process of moving on. And I call it being born. Because loss can be experienced as a little death, and after death, we're born, we're reborn. Something is lost, something is gained. Actually, no loss, no gain. Just change. Being born. Actually, when we take new steps after going through something so deep, we're new, we're stronger, we're different. We may not be the same person. But we take one step and another step and discover, who am I now? Who am I now? That's a fascinating question as we live with loss. Who am I now? Sometimes we have been so identified with the other person or with the relationship that's defined us. It's defined our routines. It's defined our sense of self. It's defined our entire life. And stepping out alone without them may be very, very shaky at first. Small steps. Great discovery. Who am I now? That's the greatest discovery any of us can engage in. And you will be amazed to see, as you take one step after another, a whole new you come to the fore. It's very important to have that point of view as you're living with loss, or living through loss is a better way to put it. Living through the process. Because many feel that they've disappeared when the person they've loved has disappeared. They're gone too. They don't know who they are anymore. Who am I now? Without that routine, without that person, without the friends that might have accompanied the relationship, who am I now? That is something that stops us cold, and many become afraid to go forward. So if you take that question as an exploration, and if you allow yourself to have courage to really explore it and explore new activities that might be right for you now, don't push yourself back to what was, because you're different now. That's a very important point. You are different now. You've been through a huge experience, and you're different now, and that's good, not bad. Some people try to rush back to who they were, rush back to their old friends and activities, and it doesn't work, and that can be pretty frightening for some. It's a very common experience. So just allow yourself a little pause here and say, who am I now? You might become involved with completely different kinds of people, different kinds of activities. You may see life through very different eyes. So that opportunity to grow is vital as we make our way through loss. Because loss and gain are just two sides of the same hands. Two hands and two sides of the same hand at the same time. So thank you very much for listening. And I honor you as you take the courage to take the next step. The End, Living with Loss, by Dr. Brenda Shoshana and